I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take Two. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel on what is Kevin's 50th birthday today. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that I was with a younger man. We both get to be 50 together for a while, and then I'm bumping up to 51 in August. So I feel like we're both officially over the hill together. You may notice my mouth and my jaw not exactly moving. I actually just came home from the dentist, which is why I look like such a mess. I had to have an emergency dental appointment as my jaw just started hurting like 2 weeks ago out of the blue. And here's what my dentist just found. I have this massive abscess in my jawbone and this huge infection. So it's impacting the nerves all the way up under my eye socket and down my jawbone. And on Wednesday, we're just going to yank that tooth out because I'm allergic to plastics. So the root canal and injecting it with plastics isn't going to do the trick. So in the meantime, it's Kevin's birthday and I feel like I need to be in bed with an ice pack on my jaw. So instead, I'm going to do a little follow-up video to the series that I've been doing about the self-help cult that my ex-husband Jake and I got wrapped up in during our marriage. I will link the first now 3 videos in the description here. Once I get this video right here posted, I'm going to go pick up my antibiotics and then go to bed for a little while with, I don't know, a hot compress or a cold compress, whatever feels better. Maybe do a little bit of sunless tan and try to feel better because tonight, me and some friends are taking Kevin out for Scottish music. It's a concert. I don't know if you guys have seen all of my videos about how I'm tired of what capitalism has done to men and bring back long-haired men in kilts. That's what we're doing for Kev's birthday tonight. We are both obsessed with Scottish music. I am 1/4 Scottish. Kevin is 0% Scottish, but I am 100% planning to buy him a kilt. So there we go. I've done a series of videos this week about the self-help cult that my ex-husband Jake and I were caught in towards the end of our marriage, which almost destroyed our lives. I've wanted to talk about this for so long, but there was no context for it until the Ruby Frankie stuff started to come out and we saw Jodi Hildebrant. I was referred to Jodi Hildebrant. We didn't go to her because we were already working with a couple of other sister organizations that were also run by Mormons. And it is kind of sad, but funny that now that everybody has context for Jodi Hildebrant, I can finally talk about what happened to me and my family. And for all of my followers who have been leaving in the comments, why don't you call Mormon Stories? Dr. Dylan and I have been talking the past couple of weeks, and I may go on and read some of this stuff and just dive a little bit deeper into the details of everything. But in the meantime, I have 3 videos already up, which I'll link in the description. And today I want to read something that I didn't even know existed until 2 years ago. And that is an email from my ex-husband, Jake, to our stake president following this big blow up that we had with this couple. I'm calling them Sarah and Bob, and I'm not naming their organization, but they were a sister company. If you haven't already, you might want to go back and watch those other videos. But first, I'm going to start with the email that we got from Bob. Now, when we started working with this couple, it was in tandem with us asking for help from our bishop. I'm going to post just a couple pictures here of what I looked like during the time. Yes, I was getting up and going to church and going to some of these meetings, but other than that, I was almost completely bedbound. I could not function. At the time that everything blew up, I was only about a month out from having the life-saving procedure, which would stop the super bacteria that was working on killing me for 3 years. But I had a long way to go until I was recovered. So my health was extremely fragile. In fact, it would take me the next 2 years to actually get back on my feet. So I was critically ill, fighting for my life during most of this. And it was the first time in our lives that my husband and I had ever asked for help from the church. In order for us to receive the bishop's storehouse food and the little bit of money that we were asking for gas and a couple of our mortgage payments so that we wouldn't lose our home, we were forced to go to these people and do their self-help cult program, which got so invasive. They were in our bank accounts. We were working with them literally every single day of the week. Honestly, I think that we started off every single day with like a text or a phone call or something. And then our vision recalibrations were all the time. And it was so invasive. I joked about us moving in together because we were doing stuff all the time, but like we should have. We shall notice in this email that I'm about to read that they did ask us to itemize and sell a bunch of our personal items in order to get any help from the church. Again, we had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in tithing. I was critically ill, and if there's ever a time when a church that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars maybe should help some of its members, it was this time in our lives. We desperately needed help. We had nobody else to turn to. So somebody commented on my previous video that when this couple asked us to itemize things, they thought that they were asking us to sell them. And that's exactly what they were doing. They had asked us multiple times to go through everything in our home. My jewelry, some of the antique dishes that I had. I collect Fire King jadeite, our vehicles, our tables, dining chairs, anything that may have any value, to list those out and itemize them so that we could sell them. Dear Jake, I want you to read this entire email very carefully. I'm wiped out after traveling all day, still up very late because of my concern for your family. Took a lot of time to write this. I'm going to say something that might hurt like hell to hear. I'm writing it because I love you and your family, and if you want another minute of help from the welfare committee, I recommend you read it and change some things right now. Thank you for taking some effort to do your assignment this afternoon. This, however, was not how you're asked to complete the assignment and is mostly useless to you and us. Last Sunday, to help you with your assignment, you may recall that I volunteered for the assignment to build you a tool that could help you organize yourself. This tool was this weird spreadsheet thing that he did for us. After 8 hours at the church, I sacrificed the limited time I had with my family on Sunday evening and was up until midnight on Sunday evening figuring out the very easiest tool possible that would serve you. I completed my assignment on Sunday and heard nothing from you all week. And that's because Jake was taking care of a sick wife and 4 kids. 3 of them had to be driven to school, which was really far away, and also he just finished up realtor school and was still running our business. It was still going. It just wasn't making us the money that it needed to. Jake, I'm going to say this as kindly as I can, realizing that you have a lot on your mind right now. At least 4 weeks ago, gave me the very clear assignment to ask you to organize yourself in a way that we can work together and you and your wife steward every dollar that you have. I did not give the assignment. God gave you this commandment. And if God had commanded thee to do some great thing, would you not have done it? To paraphrase the Old Testament verse, he asked you well over a month ago to organize your budget in some way on a weekly basis so that you and Jenny can fight this battle with us. This was meant to help you in a way that we can all very clearly see what your battle is this week and where changes can be made, where holes can be plugged for support. Because you couldn't understand why, even after hours of explanation, and I'll tell you guys, we were on the phone with him for hours and hours and hours, you refused to obey. From what you gave us tonight, it's pretty clear that your obedience is not a willing one. You guys will notice that they talk about resistance a lot. That was a word that they'd use with us all the time. Like, if I questioned anything, oh, Jenny, you're exhibiting resistance. And they also talk about obstinance and obey and obedience. I will tell you that when I obeyed the same command directly from God, to steward my finances with exactness, to appreciate every dollar that I was given, to be creative with how to close the negative balance in my budget 1 week at a time, to give my all to generate a little extra cash each week or sell something that wasn't important or take some step that I could take, then in less than 2 months, God helped me to close my budget and my family now has all of our needs met each week. There is huge power in stewarding with exactness every dollar that God does give you. Again, this couple was in our bank account. We added them to our bank account. And one day I had spent like $8.13 that hadn't been agreed to at Burger King after hours of doctor's appointments on the other side of town with 4 very hungry children and no food with us at the time. And I had gotten holy hell from them just a couple weeks before this. I could not put gas in my car without permission from this couple. I could not buy a pair of socks without permission from this couple. So when they say that they were asking us to steward every single dollar, this was so invasive. They were in our bank account. This is where I think he sounds really Jodi Hildebrant here. If it were only you in this current financial mess that you have created over a very long time through your pride and obstinance, I would frankly let you go into a homeless shelter at this point. I am awake at 1 a.m. writing this email after doing your assignment for you, purely out of concern for your 4 children and their welfare. Your disobedience to the counsels of God and the welfare committee and the bishop and your obstinance is completely putting your family in peril. Again, capital bold here. I am going to now teach you why you need to complete this assignment. In about 15 minutes, I took the information that you provided us today and put it in the spreadsheet that I built for you. I want you to consider how many hours of resistance you have given us in this assignment and how many hours of your life and our lives you've wasted by your obstinance. It required only an hour or so of obedience. We didn't have an hour. We didn't. And this isn't necessary to receive help from a church. If it's 250, just put that down as 250. What kinds of odd jobs could you or Brenna or Mason do that could generate money for your family? What kind of odd jobs could you or your 2 children over the age of 12 do that could generate money for your family? You might come up with 2 work ideas. Option 1 would generate 250. Option 2, which generates 200. What things could you sell on eBay or Craigslist or a garage sale that could generate money? You might generate 3 things that would generate $150 total, and you would enter that into your spreadsheet. So the thing is, they were asking us to sell our dining table and chairs and dishes that we ate off of. We really didn't have, we had already sold everything. We had sold everything that we weren't using. And at that point, if we were selling things, we were going to have to replace them. And they were telling us, you're just going to trust in God. You're going to sell those things. And then as a reward for selling those things, God's going to give you better things in the future. Then they're asking us to literally stop putting any money into our business and pray about that. We ask that you and your wife pray about that change, eliminate the $600 in marketing and get rid of that. Pray about that. God's going to help you. What can you do to reduce how much you're spending on food? That amounts to a large portion of your budget. You can make some possible adjustments to the budget and agree to discuss that change with Jenny. Anyway, he goes through all these numbers. Then he says, Jake, I'm sorry if this email hurts. It is meant to wake you up to the reality you're in and a deadly pattern that up until now you are stuck in. Satan is trying to kill you and your family in every possible way. And if you don't put on your armor and listen to God with exactness and do what he tells you to do with exactness, you and your family will be killed in a battle by Satan's power. This budget exercise is not about making you build a spreadsheet. It is meant to teach you a powerful eternal law of God. If you don't learn how to do something as simple as stewarding and fully appreciating what money and resources and talents and abilities that God has given you, he will not give you more time, money, resources, or talents. This is a law, the law of increase. Listen and obey it, or you are sure to stay stuck right where you are. I'm pleading with you to start using this tool and to come up with ways this week that you can generate money in order to close your budget. Jake, you must find a job this week, even if it is a crappy one. It's time to start feeding your family with whatever means you have, even if it means working deep into the night in a poor job for a while. They wanted Jake to go get a job at the Humane Society. It was only $8 an hour. Again, we had always made money. We had my health problems with $250,000 health expenses that had not been covered by insurance that would eventually lead to a medical bankruptcy. And we had a dip in our business that was absolutely unexpected at the same time. So it's not that we weren't capable of making money. We'd always been wealthy. This was a sudden thing. Bishop knows of a job shoveling dog crap at the Humane Society, and that's in capital letters. He did that job for almost a year. And I would never ask you to do something I haven't done and I'm not willing to do. Jake, please don't sacrifice your family because of obstinance. Please go find some kind of work this week. And for heaven's sake, please come next week prepared with this tool to meet with the bishop and the committee. Good night, your friend, Bob. This letter directly led to my husband having just a meltdown, which led to abuse that was so life-threatening that my family would then force me to leave home. And about 2 years ago, I found this email that I never knew that Jake had ever written. And I'm going to read that to you now. It's to our stake president. So immediately after receiving this email, Jake would send an email off to our stake president, who he was really good friends with because he had served in priesthood leadership. And this email really broke my heart when I read it here a couple years ago. Yes, my husband was abusive. Yes, my husband was an absolute monster to me. Nobody ever wants me to be kind or empathetic towards Jake. I do hope that like bad karma gets him in some sort of way. A lot of the things that happened in our life weren't because of Jake. They were because of our involvement as a family in the Mormon church and in things like this self-help cult that we were part of. Jake didn't have an easy life. And because of that, he didn't automatically fit into the Mormon patriarchal power structure. He had to work for every calling that he had, for any of the friends or connections that he made. And I really had a lot of sympathy for him as a wife. So when we find ourselves in South Carolina and now he has a wife and these children and this major medical crisis and a business failing, he didn't have anyone else to turn to. He needed the ward and the stake to be there for him, and they were not. Dear stake president, it's been a pleasure being in your stake under the wonderful leadership, and I regret we didn't play and hang out more. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for your service. Just wanted to pass on some of my experience in our ward, and is always here to serve and help where I can. Read it, don't read it, respond, don't respond. Just wanted you to have it as the stake president. This is my response to this email from our Elders Quorum president and those he included and CC'd in the original email. Godspeed. So he then just shares the email that he had sent as a response. I have followed your instruction and read your entire email very carefully, and a day later have been inspired during a 4 a.m. heartfelt prayer to begin a response email. However, this email is for me. You all may or may not read it. For me, my response has opened the floodgates of communication that I desperately searched from God, and for that I'm grateful. First of all, let's establish basic principles. 6 weeks ago, I was humbled to my knees and stripped of all pride when I had to face a welfare committee as poor and needy. That's me. Poor and needy. Me. There is no place for pride as I begged for support, love, and compassion. We are poor and needy, period. Any men listening to this, I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you have a dying wife, 4 children, you're completely isolated, far away on the other side of the country from your family, or even if you don't have those things going on and you lose a job, you have a business downturn, something happens where you can't support them. I think it's the worst thing that a man can go through, right? Me, Jenny, and our children are all worthy Temple Recommend faithful church members, and my younger 2 would be also if they were of age. We're at the highest level of spiritual understanding, and our fruit shows our commitment to God's work. I am the first to volunteer to clean the church, wash cars with missionaries. My wife has the main dish at every potluck despite her illness. She has an amazing gift to lift, connect, and give constant, compassionate service daily, even in her time of need and health challenges, and her commitment extends way beyond a Sunday service. My kids are full of goodness. I am a 100% home teacher. I contribute established systems, goals, and methods in our ward to see that every person is visited each month. We have amazing personal relationships with every missionary that serves in our ward. We feed them often. We drive them and then investigators regularly. I know God and his ways, and I don't have to be the bishop, his counselor, Elders Quorum president, or Relief Society president to know God just as well or better than any of you. We read our scriptures, both personal and family. We hold regular family prayer, family home meeting, etc., etc., etc. You get the point. We obey the commandments. Number 3, we've been self-reliant my entire life. I have ability, commitment, and effort to provide the spiritual and temporal necessities of life for myself and my family. Number 4, health. We take care of our minds and bodies. We obey the word of wisdom, eat nutritious food, exercise regularly, control our weight, get adequate sleep. We shun substances or practices that abuse our bodies or minds that can lead to addiction. We practice good sanitation and hygiene and obtain adequate medical and dental care. He kind of goes overboard on like, we're doing the right stuff here. We strive to cultivate good relationships with family members and others. I'll do another video about this, but all of our priesthood leaders at this time were blaming me for my illness because I wasn't obeying these systems that they had in place for me. I actually sat down with my bishop who said, the only reason you're not healed is that you're not obeying God. Obedience with exactness was their motto. And he said, if you die, it's your fault because you're not obeying. Number 5, we're all extremely well educated. We have many years of combined schooling. We fill our minds with scripture and amazing books. We constantly develop our talent, including real estate school a week ago, to better develop my talents. He had just graduated. Find suitable employment, make a valuable contribution to my family, the church, and the community. Number 6, we have home storage. We use it regularly in conjunction with food orders from the church. We have built more than the recommended 3-month supply. Number 7, finances. We pay tithes and offerings. We have avoided unnecessary debt. We use a gosh dang budget, and I've explained that every single week. I've demonstrated our ability to strictly control finances while taking counsel and advice from the committee. And what the hell does that have to do with being prideful? We live within our means. We gradually built a financial reserve by regularly saving a portion of our income our entire life. We've had many hundreds of thousands of dollars in reserve as we're commanded. After all we could do, we ran out a couple months ago because of unforeseen health expenses and sudden business losses. Number 8, the first impression of the Bob email, I've been rejected by one of my own. Anyway, he just goes into how horrible Bob is. Either you can say it kindly or you don't. Either you have and show concern for a family or you don't. Either it helps me or it doesn't. Either you're sorry or you're not. Either you act and perform purely out of concern or you don't. You can't do both. And whether you say this to my face in an email behind my back or in a meeting, in your thoughts, it's the same. Either you're thinking, acting, or writing good, but once you mix the evil, it's evil, period. Good and evil don't coexist. We're in the welfare principles, and leadership is hoping our own go to a homeless shelter because they didn't obey the commands of Bob. Please let's stick to the doctrines of the gospel. Again, Jake had been the Elders Quorum president and Stake Young Men's president and served in all kinds of high callings for many years. And he knew this wasn't the way that welfare committees were supposed to work. Number 9, he talks about the bishop and how the bishop told us, we are your family now. We love you as our family. We will care, support, have compassion for you and your family. And then the bishop had told us, I feel inspired that you shouldn't move out of the ward. You shouldn't go home to Arizona. You shouldn't move to Utah. The bishop was telling us that God was giving him personal revelation that we needed to stay there and do what Bob was telling us to do. He then quotes the bishop's handbook, what should actually be happening in the welfare committee according to the handbook. Number 1, your responsibility as priesthood leaders help members become self-reliant, to care for poor and needy, and to give service. We were poor and needy. Number 2, my responsibility. Church members are responsible for their own spiritual and temporal well-being. Blessed with the gift of agency, they have the privilege and duty to set their own course, solve their own problems, and strive to become self-reliant. Members do this under the inspiration of the Lord and with their labor of their own hands. We're not to take commands from someone like Bob. Then lists out some numbers again and says, we just need help. We cannot buy groceries. We cannot put gas in our car. And again, we had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Mormon church up to this point. In conclusion, I have learned one of the most beautiful lessons. 2 weeks ago, my wife and I had a horrible relationship. We had for decades. So this little paragraph, I think that he felt trauma bonded to me during this time. I feel like Kevin and Ruby, that in some of their stuff too, as they get deeper and deeper into the mind control, it actually does push them together for a while. 2 weeks ago, my wife and I had a horrible relationship. Today, I hold her tight with my kids and embrace the love that fills our family. What an amazing difference 2 weeks made. A complete transformation. It wouldn't last for long, but also what I considered to be one of my best friends in the world wished me to be so destitute I could go to a homeless shelter, humbled and alone, just to teach me a lesson because I didn't obey him. 10 years ago, the deceit, disloyalty, name-calling would have sent me into a faith crisis, questioning every gospel principle. According to coaching, it's my fault and I should look to the patterns. But according to God and his perfect plan and his universe, with no pattern of my own, he taught me lessons, and I have made the fastest faith crisis recovery in my life. What used to take 2 weeks, months, years has taken 1 day. God is real. He and he only rules the powers of life. No amount of coaching, manifesting, or spreadsheets could have ever done what God has done in the last couple weeks for me in my life. The credit and power is his. I love to serve and continue to lead my family after the true doctrine and laws God has created. We are truly blessed to have the gospel. May we always and more fully live the doctrine is my prayer. We knew that we were going to have to transition somewhere else and sell that house. So he said, I will miss Greenville, South Carolina, and this ward. I'm incredibly grateful to know you and all the experiences we have had together. I believe you're all good people and we're all doing our best to win the battle against Satan. at our own pace and understanding. I will forever love you and appreciate your service. One of my biggest takeaways watching the Ruby Frankie documentary is Kevin, seeing him speak for the first time and do interviews. And I do have mixed emotions about Kevin's culpability and the abuse, but I also understand what it is to deal with mind control and brainwashing, and especially when it's life-threatening. When you see this battle against Satan all around you, and I was fighting literally for my life. I was fighting for my children. I believed that Satan was making me sick, and that if I didn't do what these people told me to do, that I wouldn't be here with my kids anymore. So I see that in Kevin as he tells his story and how they like first dipped their toes into Jodi Hildebrant, and then like they wade up to their ankles and they get deeper and deeper and deeper until they feel like they're drowning in what they were involved in. I know what that feels like. And I couldn't understand what was happening inside of me until now. Years later, I can look back and I can read my diaries and I can see the Facebook posts that I was putting up and just some of the memories that I have. But I could see it happening to Jake. I watched him as we got involved in this mind control group. I watched him change in ways that were absolutely terrifying. After receiving this letter, Jake was just losing it, and it was becoming a dangerous situation for me. And I finally reached out and called my mom and just had a meltdown on her. Told her, here's some things that are going on. And as I told her details, she realized that I was not safe and that the kids were not safe. And my family would call that evening and do a domestic violence intervention. They gave Jake 24 hours to get me somewhere else. But honestly, like reading through this email from Jake and just looking back at how my life worked out afterwards, that was probably the biggest gift that we could be given because it was such a relief. They saved us. They saved us from this group. If we had stayed there, I don't know how we would have detached from this. We would have been in the middle of this ward, and we believed deeply in the church. I don't know how it would have ended up. These people were so manipulative. And it is crazy that as soon, 1 week, Jake's like, hey, I can't bring that spreadsheet. He was doing real estate school. He was taking care of a family. He was running a business. He had the sick wife. We had kids that had to be driven all over the place. There were no buses for their schools and stuff. And to see the way that they turned on him and immediately, like, you've disobeyed the Lord, you're under the power of Satan, your family is going to be destroyed by Satan, just that rage. And we see that in Jodi Hildebrant. We see that anger and that rage when they lose control over the people that they're trying so desperately to control. I have had questions from some friends and from a couple of people on my YouTubes about why I think this couple did what they did. Like, why was Jodi doing what she did? Why did the Dragons, did they fight in Reese Harker, Life-Changing Services? Why do any of these people do the things that they did? Why did Bob and Sarah want to have so much control in our lives? I have an answer for that. I've puzzled about this a lot over the past decade, and I'm going to save that answer for Mormon Stories. I would like to talk about that with the Mormon Stories team. I think that Dr. Glenn would have some great insight, and I don't even want to verbalize any of those thoughts until then. I do want to end this video on a positive note. I realized a couple of my other videos, they just get kind of dark. So let me wrap up so I can go get my antibiotics and take a nap before Kevin's birthday here. The deeper I got into Mormonism, the worse my life got. I was born and raised, and in the beginning, primary was kind of magical when I was a 5-year-old, 6-year-old girl. I loved all of the activities. My mom was often the chorister in primary. I loved hearing her sing and being involved in my big, beautiful family with 29 first cousins and a million second cousins and uncles and everybody. And it looked so magical on the outside, and it was just that magical up until a certain point, probably about the age after I got baptized when I entered middle school and started to become trained to be a trad wife, and then also faced with a purity culture that really didn't allow me to express my personality at all. There was a certain point in my life when Mormonism began to squeeze and control me, and the more squeezed and controlled I was, the more difficult and dark my life got, until we found ourselves in the middle of everything that I've just gone through in these past few videos today, when every single day was a struggle for me to get out of bed. I didn't want to be here. But it wasn't because of me. It was because of the dual cults that were choking the life out of me and my family. And I left the Mormon church 6 years ago very unexpectedly. Just I went to church one Sunday with Jake. We would be gone by the end of that church service, and I've never been back. My life has gotten so much better on the other side. I literally giggle when I wake up in the morning. It's hard. Like, I'm not giggling over the jaw this morning. I never have enough money. My health has been damaged by what I went through, but I have ownership over my life and freedom and people around me who love and support me. And I am so, so, so happy. And I find it ironic that I was living out my religion because I thought that it was the path to happiness and eternal life. But the deeper I got in, the more unhappy I was. And I always thought that if you leave the church and leave religion in general, I've left Mormonism. And after 4 years of Christianity, I broke up with Jesus. I've been an atheist for 2 years and 2 months. And the more I get away from religion, the happier I am, the more just truly joyful my life is. I do have a lot of sadness that I can't go back and redo those 44 years that I spent in the church. My marriage to Jake would not have happened without a Mormon bishop forcing us to marry. But let's say we had met and ended up together anyway. I think that we could have had a really happy life if it hadn't been a Mormon life. Bit by bit, the things we got pushed deeper and deeper into would have destroyed any couple. And it certainly was the end of our marriage. The way, yeah, Jake is happy on the other side too. He's converted to Christianity, but a non-denominational church that's really amazing. We both actually went to that church together after we left the Mormon church. And now that he has real tools for healing and not people like Jodi, Hildebrant, and magic fairy dust, he's living his best life. And I really do want that for him. Again, I'm just so happy that we got out before it turned into a mutual unaliving or something like what happened with the Frankie family and others. We are some of the lucky ones. And I know that every single day. Thanks for watching. I will be hanging out in the comments to answer questions. And I may do one more follow-up video, but then I'll just be sharing this on podcasts.